Our next very special guest is Governor Jack Markell, and as I mentioned, he's the brainchild of not only the Delaware STEM Council, but has been really supportive of this work and this inaugural event. So he deserves a big introduction, but he doesn't need a big one. We all know him very well.
Well, good evening, everybody, and I want to thank Terry and Judd for their leadership of the STEM Council over the last few years. And I also want to thank Luke for the work of the department, and I'll be introducing Luis Fernandez in a few minutes from Ashland. And of course, we're very grateful to the men and women of Ashland for their support of this initiative. I also want to thank the members of the STEM Council. That's educators and folks from the business world alike, as well as the business network. To all of the educators who are here, obviously you are the ones, this is where the rubber meets the road, and we're incredibly grateful to you for the work that you do every day. And I see a couple of superintendents who are here as well. I've seen Susan Bunting from Indian River and Kevin Fitzgerald from Cesar Rodney. I'm told Matt Burrows was here. I didn't see Matt, but he may be here as well. I want to thank them. This is a very important initiative for the state of Delaware. I want to talk about that just a little bit. There's a really interesting book that came out about a year ago. It's called The Second Machine Age, and it was written by a couple of professors from MIT. And I would tell you the professors' names, but one of them is incredibly long and complicated, and I would never get it right. But they really talk about the implications for our world and for our young people. By virtue of the fact that digital technologies are exploding, by the fact that every one of us now carries in our pocket and our smartphone more computing power than ever could have been imagined, a decade ago, let alone 20 or 30 years ago. And the way the world around us is changing. And more to the point, what I think is really relevant to why we are all here, the authors say that there's never been a better time to be an individual with the right skills. But they also say it's never really been a worse time to be somebody without the right skills, somebody who can compete and somebody who can engage with businesses all over the world, particularly around the STEM fields. And it was sobering to me when I learned recently that if you compare the kind of educational, what students in other countries are focused on versus what they're focusing on here. In India, as an example, of male college students in India, 65% are majoring in STEM subjects. In this country, 32% of male college students are majoring in STEM subjects. For women college students in India, 60% are majoring in STEM subjects, and in the United States, 4% are majoring in STEM subjects. I mean, these are staggering figures. Because we live in a world where businesses have more choices, employers have more choices than they have ever had before about where they're going to locate and expand and hire. And the reason for that is because they now have access to a great workforce in all kinds of countries around the world. And when I've had the opportunity in the last few years to travel to India and to China, Japan, Korea, Israel, and others, it is always remarkable how when I'm driving down the road, how many multinational companies, names that all of us would recognize, have set up shop, research and development, or manufacturing plants that in all of these countries that 30 years ago by default would have gone to the United States or Western Europe or Canada or Australia. The fact is businesses around the world have more choices than they have ever had before. And there are real implications for all of us. And those implications, of course, have to do with the work that all of you are doing in your classrooms. I was reminded of this just today. I was down in Sussex County all day in a couple of businesses that are actually located within the Susan Bunting's district, Indian River. I visited M&T Bank, which has a big, we know M&T up here in terms of the banking, but they have a big operation in Millsboro, Delaware, about 460 employees. And they also have there a very sophisticated data center. They spent $20 million to build that data center over the last couple of years. And it's really the data center, not just for the Millsboro, Delaware operation, but it's one of the 2 key data centers for their entire company throughout the country. And they were talking to me, they plan to hire a number of people right there in Millsboro, Delaware, who are expert in cybersecurity. And these are jobs that require a very high level of sophistication. And so when we think about the kind of work, the kind of excellent work that's going on in the Indian River School District, we are very hopeful that students who have already come out or who will come out in the future from those schools will have the opportunity to work at an employer like that. 5 minutes away from M&T's operation in Millsboro is another company. It's called Intervet. It's owned by Merck, the big pharmaceutical company. That Intervet's been in Millsboro for a couple of decades. Merck bought them a few years ago. Merck, of course, being one of the major pharmaceutical companies in the entire world. And Millsboro, right here in Delaware, they employ about 270 people who focus on poultry vaccine, animal health. And of course, the poultry industry being very important to Sussex County and to the entire state of Delaware. They also, a significant research and development operation right there, as well as their manufacturing operation. Initiatives where Ashland came to us and said, we like being in Delaware, we are a science company, a technology company, and we want to do what we can to make sure that, for decades from now, Delaware continues to be a great place to welcome science and technology companies. And so we're so grateful for the partnership. With that, I would ask all of you to join me in welcoming Luis Fernandez.